Hello and welcome everybody to the regular meeting of the Litchfield Governing Board. Today is Tuesday, March 7th, 2023. I hereby call this meeting to order. The first item on our agenda is going to be the Pledge of Allegiance, and we have a student that's here, so I'm going to ask her if she can stand up and lead us in the pledge. If you want to in that mic, say your name. If you don't want to, that's also okay. She says no, thank you. So if everybody could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we will take a moment of silent reflection. Okay, thank you. And next up is recognitions and presentations. And we are going to start with Director Nuanez for our recognitions and celebrations.
Madam President, members of the governing board, Superintendent Gunning, and community members in attendance. Tonight, we come together to celebrate an outstanding member of our LASD community, Coach Jason Wall, as he's fondly known as. For well over a decade, Coach Wall has promoted diabetes awareness in his school community with the now called Mabel Marathon, formerly known as the ADA School Walk for Diabetes. As a type 1 diabetic for the last 21 years, Coach Wall helps educate his community through this fundraiser, which last year raised over $20,000. Outstanding, outstanding. In 2016 and 17, Mabel Pageant was honored as the number one ADA fundraiser in the nation, 2 years running. I mean, that is an incredible feat when you think about all the schools and all the fundraisers in the ADA that were going on at the time. Since 2005, Coach Wall has raised nearly $500,000 in fundraising for his school communities. Now, let me say that just one more time. That is close to $500,000. Coach Wall, I'm speechless, and usually that takes a lot for me to get to that point. We want to thank you. You are a blessing, not only to the Mabel Pageant school community, but to the LASD district as a whole. And this entire, I'm going to go as far as say this state, because you are one tremendous human being. So join me tonight as we celebrate Coach Jason Wall. Take a quick picture. Just like wandering around. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Fantastic. I'm right up here.
This is Kimberly Moran. Can I interject while you're taking your photo?
Yes, that's fine. Real quick. Go ahead.
Great. I just want to add that I've known Coach Wall for many years, and he is amazing, not only at this fundraiser, but also as an educator with our students, teaching them about physical education. Coach Wall will do just about anything to raise money for diabetes. And if you've seen his music videos, you know that's true. Now, I heard a rumor, Coach Wall, that this year you are thinking about stepping it up to the next level. And I would love to see you shave your eyebrows for the students to be motivated to give more money for your cause. So I am voting for that to happen. I would love to see it. Keep us posted, Coach Wall.
Well, I second that motion. So all those in favor of the challenge to Coach Wall, I second or third those. Congratulations. Both of my kids were lucky enough to be coached by Coach Wall. So thank you for your commitment to Mabel Paget, to the district, and to diabetes awareness. I think a lot of kids aren't affected by it personally. And I think seeing a role model really talk to them about what's going on and what that means for them and those around them is really important. So thank you for your work.
Thank you for that information, and thank you so much for all that you do for this district and for I think Director Nuana has got it right that you're great for this whole state. I mean, being the top in the country means you're great for this whole country. So thank you so much. We are going to move on to our next agenda item, which is community opportunity for comment. I will start by reading this disclaimer, and then we will move on to our public speakers. Pursuant to ARS 38-431.01H, this agenda item provides an open call to the public, allowing individuals to address the governing board on any issue within the jurisdiction of the board. Items not listed on the agenda may be brought to the governing board's attention under this section of the agenda. Due to the Arizona open meeting law, the governing board cannot discuss or take any action on items not listed on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-431.01H, response to public comment about matters not appearing on the agenda will be limited to individual board members who may ask staff to study the matter, respond to any criticism, or ask that the matter be put on a future agenda for further consideration and decision at a later date. Please limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes, and no more than 30 minutes will be devoted to the public comment portion of the agenda. When you approach the podium, please state your name for the record. Tonight, we have 2 speakers. Our first speaker will be Mark Eastlis.
Thank you, President Deidema and members of the board and Litchfield community. My name is Mark Eastlis, and I am the superintendent of the Agua Fria High School District. And I am here to extend a heartfelt thank you and congratulations to Superintendent Gunning. I know Superintendent Gunning that as you get towards the end of the year, you're going to get set to end your career here at Litchfield. But I wanted to remind you about a couple of things that you did and some of the things that you went through as a superintendent that I think should be said and need to be remembered by the community. Number one, do you remember how you navigated through Red for Ed? Do you remember when, as a superintendent, you always advocated for more teacher pay, for higher wages for teachers and better salary and benefits? And then when it actually happened, when the Red for Ed movement came across our state, you were in a position to want to support the teachers, want to help the kids, certainly understood what the families were going through on those days that we had to close schools or do whatever you had to do in this school district. But it wasn't an easy thing to do. It wasn't something that they certainly taught us in superintendent school. And not a lot of people know the anxiety and the stress that we went through at that time. You also led your district through a pandemic. Sometimes those of us that have been at the superintendency through a pandemic can really remember how difficult that was. You know, closed schools, open schools, masks, no masks, vaccines, no vaccines. You know, there was always something that was on our plates as superintendents. And I had at the high school dances or no dances, and you probably had recess or no recesses, right? So that was a difficult time. And now what we face is the safety of our schools and how hard it is for us to keep our kids safe and how that keeps us up at night. And I think people don't recognize the toll it takes on us and what it actually does to us as human beings and as leaders, just with that responsibility. And when I came to the job at Agua Fria, you called me right away and extended your support. And you have never wavered from that. You've always treated me with respect and kindness. You've always been very professional, and you've always extended that hand to work with each other, and I'll never forget that. And so as you get set to finish your career here at Litchfield, I want you to know as a colleague and as a superintendent that I will always remember you as a strong leader and a graceful leader. And for that, I congratulate you and thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. President.
Thank you. Our next speaker is going to be Mike Finnegan.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mike Finnegan. I'd like to talk about item 6I on the agenda, continuous exodus of staff and personnel, sometimes within a month of hiring after experiencing what goes on in LESD. Tonight, we have 18 certified personnel resignations, 12 classified instructional assistant resignations, 18 new instructional assistants hired for replacement. This indicates a lot of turnover resulting in lost training costs / stipends and new redundant training costs / stipends and more professional development for replacements. And let's not forget the constant approval for 32 pages of stipends. For example, the $2,500 stipends recently given out to a very large amount of staff for their loyalty and to incentivize them to remain at LESD. Is it working, HR director? These lost categorical expenses are spiraling out of control and resulting in negative return on investment, which leads me back to dealing with teacher burnout. Employees may feel that taking time off reflects poorly on them, so they choose not to use their PTO. It makes sense for HR director to track leave data to ensure employees are not overworking themselves. Is this being done? Maybe require them to take 50% of their PTO each year. I see large stipend payouts in the thousands of dollars. One was for $32,000 for unused personal time off. If employees aren't taking PTO and thinking of them as their growing savings account, then maybe the number of PTO days allotted are excessive and needs to be reduced or made more valuable to be used. LESD culture is not about buckling down to the task at hand and accountability for results. LESD is more interested in a woke agenda of diversity, equity, inclusion, conscious discipline, and social emotional learning, taking more and more precious time away in the day for math and English. There is no science program here, but there is diversity, equity, inclusion, because that is what you choose to spend your time on. With all of these social emotional learning and conscious discipline programs in place for 6 to 7 years, why do we still have today 580 behavioral problem students monthly spending time out of the classroom and in Chillville doing crossword puzzles or meditation? Is anyone tracking these programs to see if they are even having an impact on bullying and whatever else causes out of school suspensions? Transgenderism, which is popular today in schools, is also causing confusion, especially for the young males. They don't have role models in public education as it is because it's predominantly woman-based gender. But now we have them learning about transgenderism, and it's just causes more problems.
Thank you, Mr. Finnegan. Next, we will move on to the consent agenda. I will go through everyone and see if anyone has any questions or would like to remove any items from the consent agenda. Ms. Clymer?
I had 2 questions on the consent agenda, but I don't think we need to remove them. I think I can just ask in the discussion portion.
Okay. Which sections are your questions on? Just
Oh, I'm sorry. 6P, I had a question about the summer school and the transportation 7. I think it's V and W. it's one question, but those are the two items that are on the list.
Okay. Mr. Owens,
None from me.
Ms. Moran, did you have any questions or anything you wanted to remove from the consent agenda item?
No questions and nothing to remove. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Honak, did you have any questions or any items to remove?
I would like to remove item U, 150K for employee evaluation software or something along that line. I would like to, I guess maybe remove or at least discuss item V, 800,000 for contract drivers. And I would like to remove W, 150,000 for bus routing software.
Okay. Can you tell me that second one? So we've got 6U and then I've got W. What was your middle one? I'm sorry.
I think it was-
It's item V as in Victor,
Okay.
and that was 800,000 for contracting bus drivers, I guess, because we don't have enough bus
Questions on
drivers.
those, or did you want to remove them and discuss them separate?
I think that they should be all three removed and certainly discussed. I mean, it's a lot of money going out to stuff. V is probably in the end, I will end up voting for it, but it really does need to be discussed and perhaps removed because maybe we should modify it.
Okay, so then we'll start with Ms. Clymer's questions and then we can vote on the consent agenda item minus those items, and then we can talk about those items individually. So did you want to ask your questions, Ms. Clymer?
Sure. 6P is the summer school stipend. Really, my only question was, I know these are coming out of ESSER funds this year. They haven't in the past. How does this, the total cost compare to the last year or two? Is that, because we have sort of two columns, one for 85 teachers, one for 130 teachers. I'm assuming we're not exactly sure, right, where we're going to fall within that mix, but where does that fall compared to what we did in the past year?
So last year we had spent a little bit under $500,000. And a lot of it was just based on staffing of trying to find enough staff. So we have the capacity from a dollar perspective. So that's where we want to try to fill as much as possible. Otherwise, we give that the grant piece back. This is a part of the governor's grant component for summer school. So we were able to get that additional funds again this year. But it's looking good and people were really pleased with the program last year and lots of great feedback from a teacher and staff perspective. They really enjoyed doing it. So now I think it's going to be a lot easier for John to recruit. So we'll be able to fill hopefully most of all of those positions.
Okay. I thought the 500,000 was about that number, but I just couldn't remember. So thank you. We're increasing, which is good. Thanks.
I just wanted to clarify one thing on this agenda item. So the reason there's two different columns is we've been informed that the governor's grant is continuing, but that it's going to be more competitive than in past years. And so if we are successful in receiving the governor's grant again, odds are we will have the resources to do the larger program. If not, we will then fall back on the ESSER funds to do the slightly smaller program.
Understood. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. So since that was the only one we had questions on, if we can get a motion to approve the consent agenda minus 6U, V, and W, or did you have another question? I'm sorry.
No,
Okay.
good.
So minus 6U, V, and W.
Okay. I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented minus item 6U, 6V, and 6W.
A second.
Okay, having a first and a second, I will go down for the vote. Ms. Clymer,
Aye.
Mr. Owens,
Aye.
Ms. Moran,
Yay.
Mr. Honak,
Yay.
and I'm also a yay, so motion passes. Now we will go back to the items that we removed. We'll start with 6U, which is to approve the issue and release of a multi-term solicitation for employee evaluation system. This was something you asked us to pull off, Mr. Honak. Did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, sorry, I have to flip, over 3 different windows. So I was getting item U up so I could, so the thing, and I still don't have it up. Give me a second here. Here we go. Okay. Okay, so I've got a problem with this and W. I can make generic comments that apply to both. First off, I don't recall that we ever discussed these before. Maybe I missed a meeting or something like that, but it really doesn't matter. Here we are right now. We have an employee, 150,000. It just seems like we just spend money left and right that normal, big companies don't do these things. Employee evaluation should be done by the employee's supervisor. So let's say Nate, is going to be evaluating transportation department employees. Every time you turn around, things that just seem to be normal administrative type of things or teaching things, we got to go out and spend a ton of money on some software. And I don't know, is it like, it just makes me think of somebody getting, it just seems, I don't know, it just seems like it's almost corrupt. You evaluate employees to see if they're doing a good job, if they need to be corrected. Do they to build up a record if they are bad, that you're not going to rehire them. And so what do we need? We have an HR department, we have an HR director. What do we need? Why are we just throwing away $150,000, which is now all of a sudden, I guess all the administrators now have to learn this software so they can do an evaluation instead of doing the evaluation that would be appropriate for their department. It just, we got an 80-something million budget, but every little trickle is throwing away money at stuff. There's been no, so moving on to W specifically.
Hold on. We're going to stick with this one first because I want to let Dr. Duzey explain, because I don't think we're approving to spend $125,000 right now. We're approving for them to go out for an RFP. So I'm going to let Dr. Duzey explain what they're trying to do to see if that helps with any of your questions, and then we can talk about it further.
Thank you, President Zaidama and Governing Board and the community. Yes, we have been tasked with researching a new evaluation system. It began with a new evaluation system for our educators to provide timely feedback, opportunity for grow, and create that common language to allow professional development to be built around that to help enhance instruction. And so in researching that process for the last few months, we also wanted a cascading system. And that's why the term has now been changed from teacher to employee, because we would like an evaluation system that's comprehensive enough to allow us to use the same common language across all of our employees. And many, the agenda item doesn't maybe do justice. It's not just about a platform, a digital platform. It's about using the tool that's been designed, and the platform is part of that tool to gather the data. You go in the classroom, it allows the principals actually to have much easier access to completing their expectations of completing an evaluation, as well as the directors. And so originally, in looking for a teacher evaluation system, we did some research and discovered that we really need to look for an employee evaluation system, because what we don't want is to research a teacher evaluation system And then once we implement that, then come back to you, ask to open another RFP for our other classified staff, transportation, different roles in the district, and then have a new system selected. So that is why we are asking you today to do an employee evaluation system, allow us to use our scope of work that we've established that we want in a cascading system and see what vendors are out there that can offer that product. The price is not that's the maximum price. It's just we don't have really a real way to tell you today exactly the price, because when I was researching in the beginning, the prices really varied quite a bit. And so, of course, the price would be something later on down the road. If we were to recommend an employee evaluation system, that's something that you would all revisit.
Okay, Ms. Clymer, did you have any questions about this item? Mr. Owens, did you have questions about this item?
Yeah, so we have a current employee or teacher evaluation system in place.
Yes, we sure do. Thank
How
you.
long,
For great
yeah,
question.
how long have we been using that system?
I probably need some help with that.
Sorry, I know. Okay.
So they
Since
said
2010, yes. And that system was designed from pieces of best research and was designed in-house to provide a common language for principals to use to evaluate teachers. And we also have evaluation systems for each of our different roles, and they're all different instruments with different origins.
So this is authorizing you to get proposals to determine whether or not we want to even add a new.
Yes, sir.
So it doesn't cost us any money.
No, sir. Not right now.
Perfect.
Okay, can I follow up to that before I ask others? We have been talking about our teacher evaluation for a while and how we needed to go through it, revamp it. We need to really, it needs an overhaul. And so I think that that's where this is coming from, is the idea that, you know, if we can find a system that will integrate through all of our staff, we can use the same language for everybody. Everybody's being evaluated on the same things. It will make it, you know, better across the board. Mr. Honak, did you have any follow-up questions?
Yeah, I do. First off, we have a teacher evaluation system. It's called student achievement. That's the job of teachers, and the results are based on our student achievement, which of course is very dismal at LESD. That's where we need to focus. The other thing is that it seems like we have a non-problem. We're inventing a problem, but if we do have a problem, we're going to have a new superintendent starting in July. And doesn't it sound like the new superintendent should have who's coming here presumably to make major changes in the district? So why on earth are we running off exploring to do something when we need, you know, we have a new superintendent that may be coming in with a completely different paradigm. So it seems to me that we're just churning up something that it's not, at the very least, it's not timely. If there is a problem, fine, but we should just wait a few more months until we have the new superintendent, because they're going to have to live with it, and we're going out shopping for something right now where the person that's really going to be responsible for the performance ultimately is going to be the new superintendent, which I would, as a board member, would insist that the new superintendent, it fit their specifications. I guess that's my statement instead of a question, unless there's some comment on that.
No, thank you, Mr. Honak. Ms. Moran, did you have any comments or questions about this item?
I will just comment that I agree with what President Zeidema said, that we've been asking for a revamped evaluation system. So I'm all in favor of us exploring what our options are, and I will move to approve item 6U as presented.
Second.
Having a motion and a second, I will go through the vote. Ms. Clymer,
Yay.
Mr. Owens,
Nay.
Ms. Moran,
Yay.
Mr. Honak.
Nay.
I'm a yay, so the motion passes. Next, we will move on to item 6V, to approve the issue and release of a multi-term solicitation of contracted bus drivers for student transportation. Mr. Honak, you also asked to pull this off, so if you want to let us know your questions.
My question is, have we looked into the giving a way for our drivers to get more money without paying them to sit around in the middle of the day when they're not driving, playing with their phones or whatever? And one of the things that we had a big discussion about was student aids. And student aides aren't necessarily certified teachers. They're just there to help, to be able to have a separate activity, monitor that while the teachers, or they're making copies or whatever. Have we explored the possibility of, offering bus driving jobs with greater pay, predicated on the fact that when they're not required to be driving or dealing with the buses, that they were willing to assist in whatever other ways, some of which maybe drivers would really enjoy and they'd be quite good at. So have we pursued any of that?
Board Member Honak, this is Megan Duplain. We are in the process of brainstorming and networking with surrounding districts and experts in our states on how we can combat this staffing issue we're having. And right now we've talked to several people and we have a bunch of ideas, one of which is what you're talking about, the shifts where people do other jobs during the day. So it's not a split shift, it's a straight hours. There are several different ideas that we're looking at and talking with different districts and directors of transportation that truly have found some good strategies to build their fleet or build their staffing for, so that they can ensure that they're not canceling routes and they're, able to provide transportation to as many children in the district as possible. So there's a bunch of options on the table, one of which is to have the ability to contract bus drivers from different contracting agencies. So one of the ideas we wanted to do, just like the last, the first one before that with the evaluation system, we're just going out for a proposal to see what companies are able to provide us contracted bus drivers if we are in need. So this is one of the things we're looking at to see if we are in need and we, in order to avoid canceling routes, that we are prepared with the information to move forward if needed with a contracting company.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Duplain. That answers my question, but I would encourage us to explore the possibility of fulfilling, our other need, like teachers' assistants. And I don't know if we need to necessarily go see what other people are doing. We could maybe invent it ourselves.
Sure.
So anyway, I'm all good for that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Board Member Honak. I'll make sure I know that so our team can consider that for sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Vaughn, were you going to talk?
Yeah, I was just going to also add that one of our goals with this particular RFP is presently we do outsource certain routes to ensure that we can have them covered. And so one of the goals with this is to ensure that we're getting those routes covered the most cost-effective way possible. So by going out for RFP for contracted bus drivers, we can then compete, if you will, the cost of having a contracted company completely do the route where they're providing both the driver and the bus versus us providing the bus and them providing the contracted driver. We will also be bringing in a future board meeting. What we have been talking about is what can we do to try to encourage more employment of our own bus drivers. But as we've heard, we're just trying to make sure that we have all of the different options in place so that we can have a comprehensive plan towards providing transportation for our students.
Thank you for that. Do you have any questions?
Understood. Thank you.
I do not.
Mr. Owens?
I do not.
Ms. Moran, did you have any questions?
No questions.
Mr. Honak, did they answer your questions?
Very much so. And I'll move to pass item W.
Item 6V? Okay.
That's corrections. Yes, six Victor, 6V.
I will second.
Okay, having a first and a second, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Clymer?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
Mr. Honak?
Yay.
I am a yay, motion passes. Next up, we will move on to 6W, which is to approve the issue and release of a multi-term solicitation for transportation routing, planning, and management software. Mr. Honak, this was your item. Did you want to ask your questions first?
This is sort of the same thing that there's all sorts of freeware starting with Google Maps. There are and you know, we have an IT department, and you know, I guess you just want to go look and see what's out there, but I think if we're going to go look and see what's out there, we should be looking out there to see what we can copy, because it's just 150,000 for something that I mean, they're literally kids games that do things like that. So I'm just looking at being fiscally responsible and you know, being very a little bit overly free with throwing money out on things that are pretty intuitive and can be done for free or in-house and just part of the normal thing instead of having a formal process. But I think I'll just vote for this. It's fine. We're just going out to look. So that'll be it for my discussion.
Did you have any questions, Ms. Clymer?
I had one question. I know that we do currently have a system in place for routing and planning and all of that stuff. I've seen it on tours there before. What's the current cost that we're paying on an annual basis? Do you know, or roughly, it doesn't have to be exact, but I mean, how does this compare to what we currently are using?
I don't have that number in front of me, but one of the reasons we're wanting to go out is the software is end of life. It's no longer being supported by the company that produces it. So it's becoming less of an option.
Okay.
There are a couple of options that were on cooperative contracts that the district did a soft evaluation on to see if we'd be interested in moving forward with that. We weren't entirely satisfied with what we were seeing. And so we wanted to give ourselves the opportunity to do a more thorough evaluation to really vet what options would be best for the district here.
Okay. Agreed. Thank you. I knew we had a system. I've taken a tour of the transportation department, and I will just say that it is, in my point of view, just looking to see what they do every day is absolutely necessary, that we have a high-tech way to keep track of our buses, our drivers, our students. We have video. We can tell where each bus is, how fast they're driving, if they're in an incident. All of that stuff is reported. And I think we had a lot of lives at stake. And I think having the best high-tech solution for that, whatever platform that may be, is worth $150,000 and more. So anyway, I move to approve item 6W. Oh,
I just wanted to see if anybody else had any questions.
I'm
Mr.
sorry, I'm
Owens,
just
did you
moving
have
right
any
along. I
questions?
apologize.
Yeah, I can't imagine the logistical nightmare of trying to figure out routes, different times, different schools. So I'm actually interested to see what the software can do. So.
Ms. Moran, did you have any questions or comments?
I agree with Board Member Clymer. If you've seen the system that they use, there's a lot more to it than just Google Maps. And I certainly would not even consider tasking our current IT staff, who already is stretched very thin, with coming up with, a homegrown transportation system that's not really in their wheelhouse. So yeah, I'm all in support of seeing what other systems are out there, since our current system that we do pay annually for is at the end of its life.
I too agree that these are our kids that they're transporting, so we need to have a system that can know exactly what's happening with them and when, and we should not expect our IT department to make that. So I'm all in favor of this. So if someone would like to make a motion.
I move to approve item 6W as presented.
I second.
Okay, having a first and a second, I will go through the vote. Ms. Clymer,
Yay.
Mr. Owens,
Yay.
Ms. Moran,
Yay.
Mr. Honak.
Yay.
I'm also a yay, so motion passes. And that concludes our consent agenda items. So we will move on to the next section, which is our action discussion items. We will start with 7A, which is year ended June 30th, 2022 audit reports. And this will be presented by Michael and Eric Taylor from Heinfeld Meach and Co.
Right. Madam President, members of the governing board, Superintendent Gunning, colleagues and community, thank you for joining me tonight to discuss the district's annual audit for the 2022-2023 fiscal year. Joining me tonight is Eric Taylor, partner of Heinfeld Meach and Company, the district's external audit firm. Eric and I will talk briefly about the district's audit and then answer any questions you may have. Attached to the agenda item tonight is the district's single audit, which is a review of the district's compliance with certain requirements of federal funds. This year, the federal programs being audited included the school nutrition cluster of grants and the COVID-19 grants received through the governor's office and ADE in 2022. The USFR compliance questionnaire, or Uniform System of Financial Records, is a listing of various compliance requirements that the Arizona Auditor General's Office asks school district auditors to audit as part of the process. These compliance requirements range from attendance reporting to procurement and many areas in between. Also attached is the governance communication from the audit firm directly to the governing board related to the audit and summarizes various aspects of the engagement. I'll now hand it over to Eric to discuss results of the audit, and then we'll be able to answer any questions you might have. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Thank you for letting me be here. I'll be very brief. This was our first year.
I'm going to ask you to make sure
Sorry?
you talk. Is the mic on?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we got to make
Better?
sure that people can hear you at home
Okay.
because they're very riveted
I'll
to
be
hear
very
this.
brief. This was our first year on the audit and it went extremely well. Mr. Vaughn and his staff were a pleasure to work with, and they did a great job providing us information, helping us and assisting us in completing the audit. Your single audit report that you have, you received unmodified opinions for both the financial statements and the federal programs, which is the best opinion you can get. Another good thing with that report, there were no major findings that needed to be included in that report that were elevated to a significant deficiency or material weakness. The only findings we had were compliance findings that are noted in the USFR compliance questionnaire. I can answer any questions you have, or at least do my best.
Okay, Ms. Clymer, did you have any questions about this?
I didn't. Thank you for putting it together and thank you for saying nice things about our staff. I think they are nice to work with as well. So we appreciate it.
Mr. Owens, did you have any questions?
Yes, please. Last meeting, I asked about, I forget what it's termed, not over, like like our rainy day pot, like the money that we save to make sure that we have, if for whatever reason anything happens, what's that number for the end of this year? Is this on here somewhere where it says this is how much money here was our budget, we spent every dollar of it, and this is how much money we have left.
So that number gets a little bit obscured in the audited financial statements because of all the adjustments that have to be made because of accounting standards. You add in things like pensions, pension liabilities that are very future facing and kind of estimates. So I don't know that it would be very easy to see that number in what you have in front of you today. There's some other documents like the AFR, the annual financial report that gets governing board approved in October, that becomes much more clear to see. So if you're looking for that, I would recommend looking there as opposed to the audited financial statements. Eric, maybe you can.
I think a good place to look as well, your M&O fund is your major operating fund.
Sure.
So if you look at the budget to actual report for the general fund,
Good point.
it's right behind the notes to the financial statements. And if you look at the fund balance, I think that would give you a good idea too, a little bit.
And so remind me that in your analysis, all that stuff, you think that it should be about 30%. Right?
Yeah, that was one of the targets we set.
And our total budget for that last year or this audit came out to be what, 96 million? Is that what we roll about?
Let me pull it up. The reason the numbers change a little bit because the definition of general fund changes depending on if you're looking at audited financial statements or if you're looking at the annual financial report and the budget we actually approve.
Okay.
In the annual financial report, funds are broken out more, whereas in the audited financial statements, funds are grouped together.
Got it. Okay.
But your number doesn't seem drastically far off.
Okay. Yep. That's all. Thank you.
Ms. Moran, did you have questions on this item?
I do not have any questions. I received my hard copy of the auditor's report today, and I have been riveted by the content ever since. Very happy and pleased with the findings, basically that there were no findings, and that the financial statements have been presented fairly. I have the utmost confidence in Executive Director Vaughn and his team, and I'm glad that they have been given the vote of confidence by our outside auditors as well.
Mr. Honak, did you have any questions about this item?
I think Ms. Moran just answered them. So basically, I had to step out for a second. So, but in other words, there were no discrepancies really found that were either any or of any significance, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Thank you.
I also have no questions. Thank you for putting this together. I agree our staff is pretty amazing, and it's nice when we have outside people come in and tell us how great we're doing. It's a good boost to us to know that we're doing things right. So if there's no other questions or comments, I will entertain a motion, and then when we vote, you will need to say your name and your vote for the record.
And just to be clear, I believe the motion needs to be to accept the, we're not approving, we're accepting the.
So I'm going to make the motion to accept year ended June 30th, 2022 audit reports as presented.
I will second.
Okay. Having a first and a second, I will go through the vote. Ms. Clymer,
Danielle Clymer, yay.
Mr. Owens,
Brian Owens, yay.
Ms. Moran,
Kimberly Moran, yay.
Mr. Honak.
Jeremy Honak, yay.
I'm Melissa Zeidema, and I am also a yay. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up on the agenda is to approve staffing and class sizes for the 23-24 school year, and this will be presented by Executive Director Vaughn as well.
All right. Madam President, members of the governing board, Superintendent Gunning, colleagues and community, thank you for joining me tonight to discuss the district's class sizes and related staffing for the 2023-2024 fiscal year. Class sizes are driven by governing board approved policy and administrative regulation. The budget discussions we've had thus far this year have been based around maintaining current class sizes. Current class sizes serve to balance having reasonable class sizes for instructional purposes, given the financial and facility limitations the district faces. Administration recommends approving the agenda item tonight as a first step towards approving the budget for next fiscal year.
Okay, I will start with you, Ms. Clymer. Did you have any questions about this item?
I do not. Thank you.
Mr. Owens, did you have any questions?
I do, thanks. The class size we're approving, how close are those to current class sizes? Are they just kind of a rollover? Or are they?
They're exactly what we have in place right now.
How accurate or how consistent are we in particular with the special education learning? The 8-to-1, how accurate is that? Are we pretty close on that on a school to school basis or class to class basis?
I would look to Executive Director Duplain to talk to that. I'm mostly focused on the gen ed staffing side.
Yes, Board Member Owens, we try to stay as close as possible to that. When we have to go over, we then allocate additional aid support. And so that is, we are constantly reviewing with Director McCombs and Assistant Director Mager and with Executive Director Vaughn to ensure that we are providing the support we need when we do go over, because we obviously know that population is growing significantly. So we do go over, but we have a formula that we utilize to ensure enough support is provided.
Okay, thanks. I just know that staffing at some of those classes have been difficult. So
Yes,
so,
yes.
you know, on occasion it might roll over, but just knowing that if this is the measurement for what we approve, then this is obviously what we try to maintain. We're not going to be able to always do that, but thanks for answering the question.
Ms. Moran, did you have any questions about this item?
No, I don't have any questions, but I would like to comment two things. The first is that I think it's would not be prudent for us to decrease class size at this point, knowing that we have some fiscal challenges potentially coming up over the next couple of years where we're trying to determine what we're going to do with some of our current programs. The second thing is, Board Member Owens, you might not be aware, but in the administration reports, part of our board docs, there is a report in there that shows the classroom sizes for all the schools and all the classrooms. So that's a really great resource if you ever want to know how we're doing versus our policy.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm just going off feedback that I get from actual, people in the classroom. So, but thanks for letting me know that.
Mr. Honak, did you have any questions about this item?
No questions. Thank you.
I don't have any questions either. I would say that it's possible we may have to look at this number in the future, I'm guessing, when we are looking at cutting some funds, because we do know when we've talked and we've cut our class sizes in the past, that it just dropping at 1 or 2 students can be hundreds of thousands of dollars. So this may be something we're looking at in the future. I'm glad that we're able to just maintain what we have right now. Go ahead
with
yes.
conversation. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't want to jump the gun. I'll move to approve the staffing and class sizes for the 23-24 school year as presented.
I will second.
Having a first and a second, I'll go through the vote. Ms. Clymer?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
Mr. Honak?
Yay.
I'm also a yay, so motion passes. The next item on our agenda is open enrollment excess capacity for the 23-24 school year. This will also be presented by Executive Director Vaughn. He gets to talk to us a lot tonight.
Madam President, members of the governing board, Superintendent Gunning, colleagues, and community, thank you for now joining me to discuss the open enrollment excess capacity for the 2023-2024 school year. Open enrollment is the process by which students who live in the district's boundaries can request to attend a school different from their school of residence, or where students who do not live within Litchfield Elementary School District boundaries can request to attend one of our schools. The open enrollment process is driven by state statute, State Board of Education guidance, as well as local policy and regulation. Whether or not a student's application for open enrollment is successful is primarily driven by the capacity of the school, grade level, and program they are requesting. Tonight's agenda item presents the initial estimate of excess capacity for next year, where based on projected staffing and class sizes, there is capacity for additional students. At this time, I'm available to answer any questions you might have.
Ms. Clymer, did you have any questions on this item?
No, I don't.
Mr. Owens, did you have any questions on this item?
I do not. Thank you.
Ms. Moran, did you have any questions?
No questions.
Mr. Honak, did you have any questions?
No questions.
I also have no questions. So if someone would like to make a motion.
I move to approve open enrollment excess capacity 23-24 school year as presented.
I second.
Having a motion and a second, I'll go through the vote. Ms. Clymer, how do you vote?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
Mr. Honak?
Yay.
I'm also a yay, so motion passes. Look at us going through this agenda, guys. I'm so proud of us. Okay, next up, we're going to move to the next section, which is information and discussion agenda items. The first item is going to be discussion related to the school calendar for the 23-24 school year regarding weekly early releases. This will be presented by Executive Director DeCoste and Superintendent Gunning.
Thank you, President Zaidema. There actually isn't a presentation, as this is discussion among the board to decide where you want to go with this and what you would like for us to bring back to you as a plan. And, just to kind of talk through some considerations, because we've had lots of discussions about our calendars in the past. And you're requesting us to look at weekly early release. So I have some questions and some guiding questions, but I didn't know if you all wanted to speak as a board and make sure you're on the same page or exactly how you want to proceed.
So I'll go through first and see if anybody wants to make any comments or ask any questions first, and then we can see what questions that you have to go through it. Ms. Clymer, did you have anything you wanted to start with, or if you want to wait and we can have her start with her questions?
I guess just the question, Mrs. DeCoste just said this was a board directive. Did we ask to have this put on the agenda, or someone from the board asked to have this put on the agenda?
I asked about this when we
Okay.
talked, like when it came up, when we were talking about budgets last time. And so
Okay.
I said that I would like us to discuss it further. So that's
Gotcha.
how this is coming from. But-
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to discuss. I don't have any initial questions right now, but
Okay.
happy to discuss.
Mr. Owens, did you want to ask a question now or just, okay. Ms. Moran, did you want to ask any questions now? Or-
Yes, actually, I would. President Zaidema, I understand that you put this on the agenda, and I do think that it is something that we should discuss. We've gotten feedback on options, whether that be a 4-day week, whether that be consistent early releases, things like that. So my questions are, do we as a district believe that we have recovered enough academically to reduce teacher-led instruction time? I know when this topic came up a couple of years ago, we unanimously voted it down because we were not in a place at that point in time to make that decision in the best interest of students. So I'm not sure that we have definitive data for that right now. And so my initial thought would be that we continue this discussion and see where we land with testing and consider this for the 24-25 school year, not the upcoming school year, but I am open to hearing options and other opinions. My other area of concern behind this is accountability and consistency across campuses. If we could get some sort of assurance that campuses would use this time consistently and it would be put in place to potentially enhance our PLC process and ensure that all teachers have adequate time for that, which we as a district are putting more time and effort into. I think that would be something that would help to persuade me that this could be considered to be in the best interest of students.
Okay, Mr. Honak, did you have any comments?
I agree with the previous comments quite a bit, and I don't think we're ripe. I don't think we have recovered, and we have a long ways to go. So I think it's not timely right now. And then the other thing is, I know that we need to well, I mean, we have a new superintendent coming in, and again, I mean, the more things we change and set in stone now, the less flexibility that person has, and we're going to be demanding a lot from the new superintendent. So I don't think it's quite fair from that standpoint either.
Okay, so I'm going to share my reasons why I asked us to talk about this. It's because we have gotten a lot of feedback. We have everyone, no matter what side they're coming at us from, saying we need to be worried about teacher burnout. And one of the things that has come up consistently when we've asked staff about that has been weekly early releases. While I agree we were not in the place to do this a couple of years ago because we were still in the pandemic mode and nobody wanted their kids to be out of school any more than they'd already been out of school. I don't think that the idea that they miss those 2 hours, if it's early releases like we have right now every week, there gets to be a point where it's quality over quantity. So if our students are able to get quality instruction from their teachers, even if it's not as long, if it's the quality instruction we want for them, then they're going to be doing better and be able to perform better. That's my own opinion about it. And that's kind of the feedback that I'm getting from a lot of the staff members that have talked to me, emailed me in various ways that they've communicated with me. So I think that we need to consider this because we are concerned about teacher burnout. We have thrown a lot of things at our staff as far as new curriculum. You know, there's potentially next year going to be a new evaluation thing. Who knows? There's all these things that have been continuously thrown at our staff, and we need to provide them the opportunity to learn that and to really understand those things that we put in place for them. And by giving them this weekly opportunity to have that for professional development, that is going to allow for them to be better teachers for our students. It's also going to give them the opportunity, since our district as a whole has really been moving towards this PLCs and giving, especially middle schools, that's my understanding, they have a very hard time of figuring out how to work that into their schedule. And by having this dedicated time, we are giving them the ability to do those every week with fidelity, which is important to us as a board. It's important to our teachers, and ultimately our students are the ones that are going to benefit. So that's my thoughts, but if the district wants to ask any questions or if anybody wants to follow up with that first.
Yeah, I guess I can follow up with that. Mrs. Acosta, you said what questions do we have as a board, or what might we want to know for you guys to put something more substantial together and come back sort of with a plan. I mean, I think first of all, the feedback that I've heard just individually as a board member, as we go on school tours or, come to me via email or just, in my daily dealings with constituents is, having, for teachers advocating for more time for various things. We can go into what those things might look like later. I haven't heard as much from parents, obviously students, and families. So I think we need to investigate how that will work. But a few of the questions that I would have for the district administration, first of all, is this something, to Mrs. Brand point about our student learning, I don't believe that 2 hours a week is going to set us back. But I also know that 2 hours is 2 hours. So what is, in your opinion and recommendation as an administration, what is the impact on students? What is the impact on learning? It might, to Melissa's point, it might actually be better because you have teachers that are more engaged and have more time to plan and actually direct that learning. I don't know the answer to that, but I'm sure that you guys do. Another thing I'm really concerned about is just operationally, can we make this happen from a transportation perspective? Can we make this happen, right? We struggle not because of anything to do with early release, but just because of other challenges we have with the economy. Can we, transportation will become even more important on times like that because it's half day and parents might not be able to pick up after school as they traditionally would. And also community ed. Are there things that we can do from a childcare perspective that might offer unique programs for 1 day a week, several days a month, whatever? I know there's a couple of different plans, but do we have the ability to scale that to meet the needs for our elementary schoolers, at least? Probably not junior high, but elementary schoolers. I also echo the sentiments of, having a consistent plan. I don't have any requirements in time in terms of how that time is, at least as a board member, I don't. I mean, if there's time that they need just in their classroom working and planning and grading papers or planning or do whatever they're going to do, that's fine. But a consistent approach to, as a district, that's how we're going to do this. We're going to spend X amount of time training. We're going to spend X amount of time doing PLCs, X amount of time in our classrooms, just giving time for teachers to do their actual job. All of that stuff is totally appropriate, but having a consistent plan that every campus will follow for the most part, I think would be good. And lastly, the accountability. How do us as a district, how are we going to measure this moving forward to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the teachers and this is actually working as they thought it would and as we're suggesting that it might? But also, again, the impact on our students and families, after a year, 2 years, 3 years, how do we measure what the impact might be? Again, I don't have those answers, but would look forward to what you guys would put together on those things.
Mr. Owens.
Thanks. Yes, seeing this discussion item on the agenda, and then I think I got a couple emails from some teachers. I didn't even know this was really, I guess, a need or just a lot of questions similar to what board member Clymer asked, primarily the impact to parents during that time, how they're going to adjust, whether they want it or not, how we're going to make that happen, just a lot of the logistical issues. And then, definitely need some stakeholder input. But I think it's a discussion worth having. I remember, I think every school I ever went to had at least maybe once a month an in-service day or early release. I know in high schools we did. So, but being the student, I didn't know whatever happened. So I just got to go home early or show up late. But if it's an improvement to the teachers' lives and their ability to teach, then that's great. But at what impact and cost to the parents?
Ms. Moran.
Yes, I think one thing that I would like to see on the options is, if my recollection is correct, a couple of years ago, we just had discussed there being additional early releases throughout the calendar year and not necessarily going straight to a weekly early release. So that might be a good way to bridge the gap, if you will, rather than jumping right in. Obviously, other things that need to be discussed and determined would be what day works best for these early releases. Right now, obviously, we utilize Fridays. I've definitely gotten feedback that Fridays aren't exactly productive to begin with. So, pros and cons to that. Maybe, going to a Wednesday to mirror what the high school district does, or even, a different day. So I would love to see some options, creative options, even, looking outside and coming up with some own things that we think might work well for us. I'm happy to consider the options, as well as, of course, I'd like to see what the financial impact would be, if any. I know at one point we had talked about the financial impact as well. So I know there is some of that, and that should definitely be a consideration as well.
Before I let Ms. DeCoste talk, Jeremy, did you have any questions? Did you wanted to add before she answers all that list of things we just gave her?
Just to comment that I don't think it's comparable to a high school, because parents that work of, elementary school students, an early release is a lot different than a high school student early release. So I think that's an issue. I think that teacher burnout's a deal, but maybe there could be activities that would free up the teacher a little bit, within the school. But I definitely think this is something that you really got to run by parents, because it could have a very big impact on a good percentage of them.
Okay. Ms. DeCoste, sorry.
Thank you, President Zaidama and board members. You asked a lot of the same questions that we're asking to, narrow down the perspective, because we've brought the calendar before and asked for additional early release days and been denied. And since then, our professional development tracking and percentages of attendance and things like that, I know you're loving the reports and you're seeing what teachers are doing. So as far as the accountability piece goes, we're giving those to principals and we're looking over them and they're sharing together about, wow, I have 97% attendance at mine, and maybe someone's lower, maybe someone's 100%, and they're discussing what's going on and how they're going to handle those situations to hold their teachers accountable for making the most of those times. So, some of my questions were, like Ms. Moran said, weekly on Wednesdays to align with the high schools. I think it's a great idea to add additional days, possibly to bridge that gap for next year and looking at the following year. Do we want to continue with the Fridays that we do and just add more Fridays? Our last survey was done in December of 2021. So getting feedback from families is very important, and getting feedback from staff, we really know, but something that's come up a lot with our staff also has been, why aren't we exploring the 4-day week, the 4-day week, the 4-day week? We've had several districts surrounding us and also within the Valley moving to the 4-day week. So that is something, to Mr. Honak's point, do you want to jump the gun on this? And maybe the new superintendent wants a 4-day week that they want to explore. How much change do we want to happen and to impact our teachers? Our teachers need the time. They need the time for curriculum. They need the time for professional learning communities. They need the time to plan. They need it, and it would help tremendously with teacher burnout. We know that, and we have been saying that to you guys for a couple of years, that the extra time for our teachers would be extremely beneficial. And I think everyone on our staff would be happy to provide documentation and data on how that time is spent. And I know Director Benjamin in curriculum is already working on different options of what that would look like across the district to share with you, and maybe recommend one that she would prefer. So we could go that route too. Another thing though, is we really love those full day Fridays. And there's so much that gets done because you can use that whole day with your staff. You can split that time. You can have content areas. You can have time with your staff. They can have time in their rooms. They can have time with their teams. So would a weekly early release then take away those Fridays? Or do we get creative where we have early release and maybe, I'm just going to throw out an idea that month when we have that Friday, maybe there's not an early release that month. But then is that confusing to parents because now we're not consistently doing things? So there are a lot of things we would adjust our developmental preschool schedule and transportation. Probably if we move to Wednesdays, we'd have to adjust their days, which probably would be totally fine. I already talked with Director McComb about that and Executive Director Duplain, and they could figure out a plan to make that work. Community education is also on our list, not only for our parents, but for our teachers. A lot of our teachers have their kids in the school. So if they're getting out every week and the teachers are expected to be in professional development and we're holding everyone accountable, the kids can't be in the room. So we would need some staffing for that for our teachers. So there are lots of things to consider. So before we went way down the road of getting all of this laid out, we wanted to know what direction you guys were going and how far you would like us to go. Let me see if I think I covered everything, pretty much, and then just wanting to see how the direction you want us to go from here. Like, what would you like us to bring back to you at the next board meeting? Or
is it possible to, there was a lot of options just mentioned there. So it seems like there's probably some, plan A, plan B, plan C type of situation that we could review as a group and kind of collaborate as to what works best. I will say personally, my expectation was not that we would jump to a 4-day week. That feels like a lot right away, but I'm open-minded. Like, if that's the best plan, then that's what we'll go with. But that wasn't my initial reaction to that. I think there's probably a lot more planning. That might be a 2-year endeavor trying to make that maneuver. But anyway, my point to be said, I think there is probably a tiered approach that we can look at that says, okay, if our ultimate goal is to, and this is the way I'd like to see it, if our ultimate goal is to have half days every week, because we know we need X amount of time a year for teachers, is it your recommendation that we would go to, okay, let's just increase the number of half days in year 1. And then in year 2, we go to every week? Is it in year 1, we go to every week, but we don't do the full day Fridays? We're going to have to sort of, pick and choose. And we'll leave it to you guys to tell us what is best. But I think finding some middle ground with being consistent for parents. So like you said, it's easy to know, okay, if it's every Wednesday, I know what I'm going to do instead of kind of the every other thing, which is a little difficult, but also maintaining that impact on, student time with the teacher and just making sure that we're maximizing that in the classroom. I think having maybe a couple of different approaches that, with one that you would recommend would be the easiest way for us to, kind of look at it and figure out which one would be not only the easiest to execute, but would get us to where we want to be the quickest, whether that's year 1 or year 2 or, whatever you'd recommend.
Mr. Owens, did you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, I think if there's a desire for this to happen by teachers and staff and administration, it's definitely worth pursuing. We can't know the answer until we know the answers to the questions, right? So.
Ms. Moran.
Yeah, I agree with Board Member Clymer. I think a phased in approach would be probably optimal. That way we can see if there's any items we didn't consider and be able to take those into account before we would, implement, whatever this full plan would look like. I'm very hesitant to say anything about us ever adopting a 4-day week. I'm potentially open to the idea, but I don't want anyone to get the impression that this conversation is setting up the district for a 4-day week. I think that would take a lot more data and a lot more discussion. At this point, I'm willing to say that this board is considering additional early releases or additional time for teachers, but a 4-day work week, in my opinion, is not really part of this conversation.
Mr. Honak.
I agree. We're dreaming with a 4-day work week. Teacher burnout is a real deal. I understand that, but we also have a school that's extremely underperforming in that 2/3 of our graduates don't know math when they go to high school. So what we need to be discussing as our primary focus is what are we doing that will improve that? So if somebody can show scientifically or some example somewhere where giving teachers more time off is going to directly affect that utter and complete failure of our district and improve it, then that's the discussion that we should have. But we pretty much are. The whole discussion, if somebody came from Mars, it was all about teachers and administrators, and there was nothing about students. Litchfield Elementary School District doing its actual job of teaching kids to be thinkers, and the fact that parents, a lot of them have to work, both of them, and they're scurrying around, trying to manage that. And so what happens to them all of a sudden that we're, letting kids out, oh, wow, well, maybe we could do it on Wednesday or Tuesday because that would be different, whatever. Where are the elementary schools that are doing this early release? I know they do it Agua Fria, that's fine. But where are elementary school, where it just sounds insane, this thing. So I'd be interested in finding out where is this actually being used and does it have any positive effect? And if it doesn't, then we need to figure out another way to deal with teacher burnout. 4-day week, forget it.
Ms. DeCoste, do you know districts around us that do weekly early releases that are elementary?
Yes. Every elementary district that touches our borders is doing a weekly early release.
So
And
we are
many others, Madison, I had that, all of that information for you guys last time I presented, asking for extra early release days. So I can pull that back up and share that with Mr. Honak and the rest of the board, definitely.
So just to clarify, every district around us that touches our district borders, that's an elementary district, has early releases, plus many other districts.
Yeah, I have not done my research this year to
Right.
check on that, but yes, in the history it was.
Okay.
Mhm. And I'm not promoting a 4-day work week. I'm just explaining to you that we're getting that feedback a lot from teachers saying, hey, it looks nice to go to a 4-day work week in other districts. And that was even one of the suggestions that came up during us asking Superintendent's Advisory Council and the Career Development Committee for ideas on teacher retention, and a 4-day work week was one. I'm by no means saying I'm bringing you a calendar with a 4-day work week. We're only talking about early release days, but I just want to make you aware of that.
Right, which we are. And for me, that's one of the reasons I think we should look at this early release option, as it's something that is not taking a day away every week from our students, and it's giving our teachers time. I'm by no means, and I know that the district is not saying that these weekly early releases means we're giving our teachers more time off. It's not time off for them. They will be doing professional development. They will be doing their PLCs. They will be doing planning for their classes. So it is not time off for them. So just for me, the reason I like weekly is, as far as for parents go, it's a lot easier for me to plan every week. This is what I have versus, wait, is this an early release week? Is this not? So for me, that's why I think that every week is better, just from purely a planning perspective for families. But I am open to whatever the board wants to discuss as far as a tiered approach. If that is something they'd prefer to do, I just still think it'd be easier if we did it every week.
And Dr. Doozy was saying it would also provide the time for our classified special areas to have some extra time also, without going to the 40 hours, maybe, weekly early release, then they stay and finish their day and have some time to plan and prep and do those things.
That's actually a good question. And maybe staffing can be part of this as well. So who's included in the early release? Traditionally, is all classified staff would be included in those half days. So that wouldn't interfere with their 5.5 hours a day or whatever they get. They would just be able to stay and participate in whatever would be going on
Yes.
on their campus.
And right now, that's how it is. If they're classified staff on our campuses and the students are on campus and it's an early release or a half day or however you want to look at it, they are paid to finish their entire workday. If it's a Friday full day in service, they are off work. But principals can use the option of stipending them out of their own budget, which I often did, especially for our art teacher and our media teacher, if you want to work on this full day Friday, join our training and have your time to collaborate and work in your room and get some planning done. We did that too.
Okay. So from a staffing perspective, it doesn't change the
Not so much.
hours from classified. If anything, it would potentially offer them more.
It could possibly impact the schools, and there are only a few left that do classified staff for specials Monday through Thursday, and then they have a special thing going on Friday. So they may have to make some adjustments there.
Okay. Thank you.
So a question I do have for you is, for our all day, like when we have our all day in service days, does that mean those have to go away if we do weekly early releases?
Well, it doesn't. I mean, if we did weekly early releases, I can't imagine that would be okay for parents to have, or for a teacher. I mean, when I look at the calendar, I just try to look at it from a teacher's perspective and from it just all around consistency and routine for the kids. So you already have a Monday off, and then you have an early release on Wednesday, and then you can't have I don't think you could have an early release and then a full day off 2 days later. I don't think that's realistic, and I don't think that's good for kids.
Okay.
That's just my opinion, since you asked.
I was just purely from like a numbers, like, does it mess with our numbers of days or hours that our kids have to have?
Yes. Dr. Doozy asked Tim Miller, our Director of Student Services, to calculate out all of our hours. and minutes and how we're accountable to the state. And we have the minutes to be able to do what we would like to do. If we did a weekly early release, that wouldn't take us underneath the state standard at all. They reduced minutes back years and years and years ago, and we never reduced minutes at the middle school level. So we're okay in that area.
Okay. Okay. So did you have any other questions or comments, Mr. Owens? No. Ms. Clymer, Ms. Moran, any other questions or comments?
No, I'm interested to see what the options are when they come back.
Mr. Honak,
No questions.
do you need anything else from us?
I do have a couple
Okay, go ahead.
questions. So would you like to see a calendar that has weekly early release and then a calendar that just has additional days, keeping our Fridays? This is kind of what I'm thinking in my head. And because the weekly one I would say would not have Fridays, full day Fridays in it. My other question is, if we bring this back and then are you going to vote, would we have wanted feedback from parents before that? I think we pretty much know what teachers want, which is weekly early release, and they need it 100%. But do we need to reach back out to parents because it's been a while?
In terms of timing, I think I agree with you that we want to be able to reach out and get some feedback before we, just kind of review it and vote immediately. Is there, I don't know what the timing looks like between now and the end of the school year, but is there a way to come back and look at the options and have that discussion? Then kind of go to a second step to gather feedback once we have options. That way say, okay, I guess to me, we run the risk of getting some sort of sideways feedback if we don't say, here are the options. What do you like best? Rather than just asking, what do you think about weekly early release? I think we're just going to get all over the place feedback. But if we say, hey, these are the reasons why teachers need more time, I think everyone knows, but we'll just explain that again and say, here are the options we've come up with. We have choice A, we have choice B, we have choice C. I think giving very specific options of what we're looking for might help get us more pointed feedback. Is that a possibility?
In that we have done that in the past, attached the calendars in the survey and had them look at them and talk about those dates. So I'm just thinking timeline. I'm a parent in the community, which I'm not anymore, but if we're bringing this back in March and then we're going to discuss it and then we're going to narrow it down, is kind of sounds like what the direction you're giving. And then we're going to go out to parents, which means it wouldn't be coming back again until May. And then we're 3 months from school starting.
Yeah.
And we're telling parents.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. The timing is very tight, but
For me, I think the two options were really, from what I'm hearing from everybody talking, is weekly early releases versus adding some additional early releases and leaving our Fridays. I would feel comfortable with them having those two options plus our current plan of adding nothing and having those parents be able to look at those three. I don't know how you guys feel about that. And if they knew that now and they didn't have to wait for us to come back again.
I would just like to caution, the last time we sent this survey out, the questions were very leading. And I would like them to be neutral so that we are not telling the respondees how we would like them to respond.
Mr. Owens, you had a comment.
Yeah, I think too many options is just gonna get, 33, 30, whatever. I like the idea of every Wednesday. I'm just saying this is what we're gonna do. So. Well, and then asking the parents, yes.
And then
I was like, that's very decisive of you there. I'm on board with that. I mean, I think that if we know about what those options might look like, I mean, we certainly know what the current calendar is and we know what every Wednesday looks like. It's just sort of, I guess, that interim option of, adding a few more days and what that sort of inconsistent days. But would those move to Wednesdays? Would they stay on Fridays? Like there's still a few.
those are the questions.
Yeah, I mean, those are still a few questions, I think, after seeing the options that I still feel like I don't know the answers to. So
I think they want us to tell them that. So for me, I would want our early releases to be on Wednesdays. I'd actually like our early releases to always be on Wednesdays. whether we have them sometimes or we have them every week, personally. I know that goes against the, right, no, and I understand, and right, and I understand that that goes against what we've heard from parents, but we know that our teachers are not getting what they need to get out of that time on those Fridays. Maybe they are on their all days, but even then, I know why we do it that way, but nonetheless, I think that early releases should be on a Wednesday because I feel that is what's going to benefit our staff, thus benefit our students more.
Okay, I can be in support of that. I mean, I think if we're going to do something consistently on an every week basis, my preference would be Wednesday over Friday. I think that if we were to look at our attendance reports on the days that we have early release for students, not for staff, for students, I think that we would see that we have less attendance on half days on Fridays than we potentially would on Wednesdays. And I think any time that students are in a classroom is better than them not being in there. So from that perspective, I'm supportive of Wednesdays. And, you know, if you as a administration recommend, even if we don't go to weekly, but just add a few more days, it would recommend moving to Wednesdays, I'm in support of that as well. And I'm not as strong as it has to be that day, but I think for a weekly, my preference would be Wednesday.
Could someone define early release? Is it 2 hours early or at noon or what is it?
Yeah, right now they get out 2 hours early on their early release days.
Okay, and then I guess since I'm talking, why are we rushing this? You know, it's like this is an urgency that we've got to address for teachers. Again, we have a new superintendent coming, and I think it is a I don't know, is it absolutely necessary that this has to be set in stone the first day of school, or can it be modified during the school year? But in any case, I don't know I don't know why we're rushing this, like we're acting like it's an urgency. And it's not just parents, but we have a new superintendent whose hands we are tying.
I don't disagree with that, but I do think, I mean, there is some sense of urgency because we do things on a school year calendar. So we either do it now or we wait another year. I would not be in support of starting something mid-year where we're changing up the school calendar for parents that have already created a system and a policy, or excuse me, a procedure for where their kids are going to go after school and sort of a safe place for them to be. So I'm probably less in favor or not in favor of making a decision mid-year that we would either decide now or we would wait another year and make that determination. For me personally, I think in terms of the new superintendent, I think I mean, I don't disagree that we certainly want to give that person some ability to weigh in on major decisions. But from what it sounds like to me in the feedback that I've heard, that this is coming from staff and administrators and, you know, a fairly large amount of our employee population. And I can't imagine that we would hire a superintendent that wouldn't learn how to adjust with that based on that, especially since, as you've reported here, you know, the majority of other school districts are doing something similar or some sort of program like this. So I don't think it's so innovative that it would be difficult to integrate someone new into that. So I'm open to it. I don't think that it's a rush, but I do think that if we're going to get feedback, we should do it in a timely way for our votes, so that we can make sure that we know how parents feel before we make that final decision.
I understand the sentiment of we have a new superintendent coming and we do want them to weigh in on major decisions. I totally agree. I've had the opportunity to talk to about half of our administrators in the last week, and I've also spoken with many teachers, and we have talked to other admin people at different levels in this district, and not one of them has said that this is a bad idea. I think maybe one has said they could understand why we'd wait, but that this is vital for our staff to have this time. So for me, it is very important, especially when we have districts right next to us that are going to a 4-day week next year. And I don't want to do that. So I do want us to figure out a way to show our staff we are listening to them, and we are going to do what we can to help with teacher burnout so that they can be better teachers for our students, so our students can be more successful. Kim, did you have any comments?
I agree with you that this is an important decision, but I also agree with Board Member Honak that this is not an urgent decision. I don't, from my personal experience as a parent, I don't put in the next year's school calendar other than potentially major breaks like fall break or winter break, that I don't believe we will be changing any of those major breaks. I don't put in the early release days until closer to when the school year starts. So I think we could make this decision all the way up into and even including over the summer. And as long as we have a final calendar approved at least a couple of weeks before school starts, parents would be completely okay with that. So yeah, I think we need to be careful about this decision because again, we have to make sure this is in the best interest of student success. So I want to see comparisons between the options of how many minutes of teacher-led instruction is this changing. For me, that's a really important piece of data. And I don't want us to groupthink this into making a decision on what this should look like now before we have all the data in place.
Well said.
Okay. What else do you need from us?
That's it.
Okay.
Bring
So-
you some drafts next month.
Okay. Thank you. We are going to
Thank
move on
you.
to the next item, which is the 23-24 ASBATE renewal update. And this is going to come from HR, Leanne.
Hi, good evening, President Zeidema, members of the governing board, Superintendent Gunning, and meeting attendees. My intent this evening is to give an update regarding the ASBATE renewal for our district medical plans for employees. We received our renewal on March 1st, as we expected. However, it does state a 6.5% increase. We have discussed in previous study sessions that it could fall between 5 and 10%. However, many of the employee premium examples were based on 5%. We were hoping for that. The information in this memo highlights the increase to employee paychecks if that 6.5% increase is the final number and it were to be passed along to employees. Again, in this scenario, we would still be able to offer the free plan under the high deductible health plan. I will share that we have reached out to ASBATE to begin negotiations. I certainly have some questions about how the calculation was completed and would like to talk to them more about it. We have a meeting scheduled for the end of this week. We anticipate having more information at our March 21st meeting. At this time, are there any questions that I could address?
Ms. Clymer, did you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. Thank you though for the update.
Mr. Owens?
How often do the percentages go up? Right. So like we saw 6.5. Was there an increase from the year before, or is it locked in for like a certain amount of time?
Typically, the trajectory, not just for our insurance plans, but nationwide, it is always going up. It's rare that you ever see it go down or decrease or stay flat. So ours has had a path of increase. We did have a rate pass. I don't remember the year. I want to say it was maybe 2 years ago.
Where there wasn't.
There was a rate pass at that time, yeah, or a non-increase, but generally you see medical costs increase.
So it's 6.5 higher than we anticipated, but in that 5 to 10, is that inflation? Is that all those other logistics, cost of goods, things increasing? Is that, I mean.
It's a great question, and that's
And you're
why-
obviously going to ask, oh, yeah, right. I'm asking you.
That's
You
right.
just
That's
said
why I
you
want to
said-
find out where
Yeah.
they came up with that number. I certainly have some questions about that. So it's a great question.
Have we ever been able to get that lower post asking questions or,
So my understanding, I did ask that question. I believe this is the first time we've asked to delve into the calculation and to possibly negotiate with ASBATE.
Okay. And this might be the dumbest question ever. Are there any alternatives to ASBATE?
There certainly are different medical plan options and groups to consider. I would say at this time, at this point in the year, it would be too late to have that review. Obviously that would require purchasing involvements, and there's quite a lot of work to be done to make a group change like that.
Yeah.
So
When would that be needed, or would that be possible?
typically you would start that process
Now for next time.
pretty much.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty involved process. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I do have one question. When will we have the ASBATE presentation to the board? I know usually annually they come out and they explain, because I think those questions that you're asking, if I remember, and I'm just like visualizing it in my head. Last year, I believe she had a calculation or some slide where it literally said like the last 10 years, and it showed sort of the trajectory of the increase. But I don't think that was something we put together. I think that was the ASBATE people that came. Are they still planning to come and walk us through that this year?
That's a great question. I can certainly ask.
Okay, yeah, it's somewhere in our board docs, I'm sure, but there was a little bit of here's the path of increase, and it's, it's not good. I mean, every year we seem to be climbing a little bit. Some years are worse than others, but yeah, I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly where that was, but I have seen it before, so maybe they can provide it to us again.
I will certainly ask.
Ms. Moran, did you have questions?
No questions.
Mr. Honak?
No questions, rates go up.
He is correct. Rates go up for everyone, no matter where you work, right? So I have no questions either. Thank you for this update. I look forward to hearing back from you when you are able to go and have some further discussions with them.
Okay. Thank you.
Next up on the agenda is the DEI goals progress update, and this is going to be done by Superintendent Gunning.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the governing board. We wanted to provide you an update. We do this twice a year, so it's March time. So we wanted to show you some updates in our data and information. One, we had that presentation just, I believe, I don't know, all the meetings are blending together, but I think it was the last meeting or maybe 2 meetings ago. But in there, you can see that over 570 students have been serviced in our care room. Also, all of the trainings and additional trainings that the behavior techs and coaches have been attending. Also wanted to let you know that we've had 5 districts actually come and visit our district to see our structures and our programs that we have in place. So it's becoming very popular program to visit. I think I'm accidentally switching these. Let me go back. When we look at the overall data, this is something that we track. We have to track this for multiple reasons, but for federal programs and grants as well. But as you can see, our alignment is looking better than what it did in the fall timeframe in regards to out-of-school suspensions and attendance. We updated in regards to trainings that we have done all the way up through 221 to foster success in our students, as well as all of the recruitment efforts that we have put forth throughout the school year, which that's been enhanced tremendously. And then we added in our student data. 2 areas that we continue to monitor very closely is our ELL population and our special education population. We do see a slight increase, but not to the level that we would like. So we are really excited about the additional trainings that we've been having in regards to PLC and really having that dialogue and conversation with our special ed and ELL teachers as well. And then I would be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Ms. Clymer, did you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. And when you, yes, I'm sorry. I obviously do have questions. I'm saying I don't. Just one question. You referenced ELL and you said not, and you're saying they're not making the progress that you expected, or?
The growth is slow. If you look,
Okay.
if you're monitoring that data, their growth is not at the same trajectory as you see of the other student populations, along with special education. So that's something that we've been monitoring. Now, we did see dramatic growth as far as ELL reclassification. So we know that those components and supports that we have put in place are making an impact. Now we're hoping that that will then show in our state and benchmark data as well.
Okay, thank you. That was the clarification. I was like, I know we've been reviewing data that's sort of showing that we're making some actually pretty impressive strides there. So reclassification, thank you for that. No, I don't have any other questions.
Mr. Owens?
No questions. Thanks.
Ms. Moran?
Yeah, I just want to comment on two things that I was really pleased to see. One is the alignment that Superintendent Gunning referred to as far as the percentage of attendance better matching up with our demographics, and there not being such a skewed rate of either lack of attendance, absences, or our out of school suspension. So I think that is a win in the right direction. Also, our overall attendance rate of 92%. We as a board know 91% is our goal as a district. And the fact that we're above that, especially post-COVID in the media, there's been a lot of information recently on how those attendance rates have not really recovered post-COVID, but we are seeing great strides in that. So that is one win for us. And the second one is I was really excited to see the continuation of us attracting and recruiting a robust and diverse pool of candidates based on adding additional programs and outreaches and job fairs to what we have been doing to try to get into every nook and cranny available to get more teachers and staff to come to our district. So I think that's a great progress has been made there. So I appreciate you.
Mr. Honak, did you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
I also have no questions. So with that, we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is our learning recovery scorecard update. This will also be by Superintendent Gunning.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the governing board. There were just a few minor changes, so I just wanted to see if you guys had actually any questions or comments, because we did present this just in February, so there are just a few things. The neat thing is that you're starting to see everything transition to a green of things that are actually implemented, and then the things that are still sitting in yellow, a lot of those are for the 23-24 school year.
Ms. Clymer, did you have any questions?
No, I didn't have any questions. Thank you for the updates on this. It's nice to see kind of all of it sort of coming together and sliding into place. So thank you.
Mr. Owens?
No questions. Thank you.
Ms. Moran?
No questions. I agree with Board Member Clymer. It's great to see progress being made, and we've got one more year, a little over a year, to spend these funds, and I'm glad to see the progress.
Mr. Honak?
No questions.
I also have no questions. I'm glad to see us spending the money. I know that's been a concern, like at other school districts and other places, people talking about they're not actually spending their money. So it's good for us to show, yes, we are. We got this money and we are using it, all of it. So thank you for putting this together.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next on the agenda will be the superintendent search upcoming events update. That's me. So the superintendent search we have this week is going to be our stakeholder meetings, which us board members, we are not going to be attending, but there are several stakeholder meetings that are open to different groups depending on where people fall. We've got the community and business one tomorrow. We also have administrators. We have a district office one. We've got several for parents. There's also the meeting. Everybody sent me their 5 people that they wanted to invite. All of them were personally invited to attend the stakeholder meeting on Thursday evening. I personally am looking forward to all of the feedback we're going to get from that. I feel like us as a board is going to be drowning in community feedback very soon, but it's going to be good. Once we get through it all, it's going to help us with what we need to do moving forward. And then we're all going to be meeting on the 28th to review resumes and see if what we want to narrow it down to for who we're wanting to interview. And then also we will be doing interviews on the 4th, pending what we figure out on the 28th. And then the goal, I put this out there, is to have somebody selected, like all this done by May 1st. That's my goal for us to get there. But obviously we're gonna have to see what comes in from all of the applications and the interviews. But my hope is that we have somebody picked and selected, and we've gone through all the process to get them signed a contract, so that even though they won't officially start till July 1st, they can start having those conversations and making those connections with people. And so when it's July 1st, they're able to hit the ground running. But that's just a brief rundown of what it is. Does anybody have any questions or comments or anything about it? Ms. Clymer?
No questions. Just want to encourage our community members, parents, staff. There is no constituent group that is not represented somewhere on this list. So find a stakeholder group meeting that you can attend and get there. If for some reason you cannot attend in person, there are survey links that are here in board docs. I'm sure they're on our district website, social media, et cetera. So find a way to get a hold of that survey because your feedback matters. The board has requested, I believe President Zeideman talked about this as our study session last time, that we not only will get sort of the executive summary of the feedback from each session, we will also see the raw data, if you will, of the pages and pages of exact comments and feedback, not necessarily associated with your name or anything like that, but just all of the feedback that comes through. So if board members choose to, they can comb through that as much as they'd like. So please find a way to get involved and share your comments.
Mr. Owens,
Yeah, ditto.
Ms. Moran,
100% in agreement.
Mr. Honak,
I agree, parents, it's your chance and you're being called to come out and decide a little bit more about the future of your children.
So yeah, that's basically our update. Please find a way to attend. The link, I will say for anybody that's watching tonight, the link is not supposed to be live until tomorrow. So if you go do the survey, you're going to want to wait till tomorrow if you're not going to attend a meeting in person. And I read every single thing that gets sent to me. So I will be that board member that's going to read every single comment that we get. So I've just already mapped out tons of time for myself to read all the comments that we're going to get from the feedback. Also on the 21st, just another thing I forgot, we are going to get a presentation from the search firm at our meeting, which will give basically the executive summary of the information that's gathered from our stakeholder meetings and from the survey. So they will be here on the 21st to share that in person. Does anybody from district have any questions or anything I need to add to that? No? Okay. Okay, that concludes this section of the agenda. The next is going to be reports. We're going to start with our report from Superintendent Gunning.
Madam President, members of the governing board, this past month was very, very busy. Last week, I attended the PLC Summit with our District Guiding Coalition to continue those efforts. Also attended the City of Buckeye Flight Show, our career fair, which we had on February 25th. That was a success. And then our safety conference where we had over 200 attendees.
Thank you. Next on the agenda will be reports from the governing board members, and I will start with Ms. Moran tonight.
Oh, well, okay, I will go first. For my report this month, the first thing that I got to do was attend the Tri-District Safety Summit, which was unlike anything that we have been involved with from a collaboration standpoint. It was well attended, well organized, and contained quality content for all the parties that were involved. So thank you to everyone who coordinated this event. I'm already looking forward to the next one. Specific thank you to our superintendents, obviously Superintendent Gunning, Superintendent Eastless, and Superintendent Hargrove, as well as their teams. I know Executive Director Duplain had a very big role in planning this as well, and I'm very appreciative of the just quality of the information that was disseminated that day. Our students are better off because of your efforts. I also attended 2 governing board meetings, one on February 21st and one on the 23rd. I also was able to attend the Litchfield Educational Foundation meeting, which was held on March 2nd. The Educational Foundation is hosting their annual golf fundraiser on April 28th, which is a Friday at the Wigwam. I'm sponsoring a foursome and I invite any other business owners or community members to join. It'll be a very fun day and it's for an excellent cause, our Pride Awards for our teachers and staff. Today, I had the privilege of reading to 5 different classrooms in 2 of our schools for Read Across America Week. It is a joy to see our students in their element, safe and learning. I always enjoy any time that I get to spend in our classrooms. And the last topic I want to touch on is one that's been heavy on my mind the past few weeks, which is change. Change can be difficult, and we will soon be experiencing a change in district leadership as Superintendent Gunning retires this summer. I'm grateful to Superintendent Gunning for navigating us through the pandemic and positively impacting student success during our learning recovery. Her dedication to educational excellence and quality instruction has set this district up for continued success and betterment, which I greatly appreciate. Change can be scary because the future is unknown, but I choose to look at this change with hope that difference will increase our trajectory towards student success. And my theme song for this superintendent search is How Far I'll Go from the film Moana, because it's inspirational to go beyond the safe and the known. So here are some lyrics from that song. I know everybody on this island seems so happy on this island. Everything is by design. I know everybody on this island has a role on this island. So maybe I can roll with mine. What's beyond that line? Will I cross that line? And the line where the sky meets the sea, it calls us, and no one knows how far it goes. If the wind in our sail on the sea stays behind us, one day we'll know how far we will go. Thank you.
How does anybody follow her? Ms. Clymer, would you like to go next?
Sure, I'm happy to. I'll quickly go through these things. I think a lot of us were in attendance of the same things or participated in the same things, but I will echo the sentiments on the Southwest Valley School Safety Summit. I think not only having the superintendents, our executive directors, I know Megan Duplain worked very hard, not only just emceeing the event, but putting the whole thing together. There was a lot of people from our district and all of the districts combined that worked really hard to collaborate and put our students first. And I think our speaker this evening, Superintendent Islas, said it very well that, you know, this is a tough time to be a superintendent and to be an educator, because you're not just worried about educating students, you're worried about keeping them safe. And that's not something that you've always had to do. So I think, you know, parents and community members should be proud of the accomplishments that our sort of coalition of districts is moving towards, because we are working really, really hard to make sure every campus and every classroom is as safe as we can make it today. So thank you for that. I attended an ASBA webinar on employee compensation and benefits. I'm sad to share that we are not the only ones that are going through a lot of the problems that we are in terms of compensation and benefits and the change that comes along with increases year after year. I think, you know, depending on how things shake out and how we handle it, we will be probably middle of the pack in terms of a lot of other districts that are grappling with the same thing. So I'm hopeful that we can find kind of a middle ground as we move forward. There was, I want to say thank you to all of those that attended the study session with our search firm to discuss the expectations. I don't have that date on me, but for the new superintendent, there was a lot of people there in attendance to listen to the board and the search firm kind of work together to figure out what those expectations should be, what the characteristics and traits of a new leader should look like. I am excited and hopeful, but nervous and anxious at the same time. So thank you for those that were in attendance and have provided feedback since then. I've had a good time gathering feedback from employees, parents, everyone that wants to tell me anything and everything about what they see in a new leader. Thank you. Keep it coming. I'm open to all of that feedback. And last but not least, I also, along with Mrs. Moran, got to read to a couple of classes at Mabel Paget this morning. One of my favorite campuses, only because that's where my children went to school, and I got to read in two of the teachers' classrooms, both of my children's kindergarten teachers. And it took me back to when they were, you know, younger and shorter than me, and now they're getting older and way taller than me. So thank you for the invitation, Principal Willis and Mrs. O'Neill, for putting that together. It was a lot of fun, and I look forward to doing it again at Litchfield Elementary School tomorrow. So thank you.
Mr. Owens.
I have no report.
I mean, you did go to Verado Elementary School, so I'll say that for you. He went to Verado Elementary School. Mr. Honak.
Very short. We're a country that is differentiated from the rest of the world because of all the opportunities that we have here. And I'm a glass half full person. I don't know how anybody could live any other way than that. We have incredible opportunities ahead of us. And I just, my hope and prayer is that parents and get engaged, and that as a district, we can really grab a hold of an amazing opportunity and make wonderful things happen.
Thank you. I have been more busy than I've ever been in my entire life this last month. I have this month had several meetings with Dr. Joel from our search firm, just trying to make sure that we are doing all the things we need to do and staying on track for our timeline so that we can meet our goal of getting a new superintendent hired by May, hopefully. So I've had several meetings with them. I've also been able to speak with our director of HR, who's helping us with this process as well. So many conversations with our HR director as well. One of the fun things I got to do was I was invited to attend the L. Thomas Heck event where they had the all-women team that did the flyover for the Super Bowl. These women got to come out and talk to these kids at their school and just be such a role model to them. And it was amazing to see how inspired all the kids were. They also had the U.S. Color Guard there. The president's own U.S. Marine Band was there. And the students got to go that do drumline and all that stuff, got to go work with the drummers that were there. There was a gentleman that had been part of the president's own band for 25 years. So he had been able to be part of 4 presidents. So that's just such a cool experience that those kids got to have. And one of the things they did was at the end, they allowed the students to come down and talk to the different groups. And you should have just seen all the girls going up to all the pilots and asking them for their autograph on different pieces of paper or even on their arm. It was so cute. They were just so excited. And I thought that's a really cool experience because they got to meet them on Friday. And then on Sunday, when they're home watching the Super Bowl, they got to be like, I got to meet those people on Friday. And they all wanted to get pictures with them. Me too. I was totally fangirling out too. So it was super fun thing to do. I also attended the safety summit. I talked about this before, and the big thing I took away was that our district is getting it right. We have obviously things, nobody's perfect, and there's always areas that we can get better, but that we are doing everything that we can to make sure that our schools are safe. And it made me feel 100% more confident that my kids are safe while they're here. And I hope that all our parents know that when they send their children here, they are safe. I was able to attend the Verado Elementary School Showcase with Principal Jenke, and Mr. Owens also joined us for that one. And I just love going on the showcases because everyone is different and they all take their unique spin at showing us things. But at the end of the day, my favorite parts are getting to talk to the kids and hearing from them. One of the things they always tell us is that their favorite part of the day is specials. So I'm glad that we're going to keep talking about that in the future because, again, while we were there, the kids talked about how they love PE and art and music and all that stuff. So I was also able to attend the national board's all-day training that they had for our staff members that are going through that process right now. It was a great experience because I got to just sit back and listen. And so it was really cool to hear the different teachers from all the different campuses talking to each other, collaborating, really sharing with each other best practices. And while they're working on this application they're trying to do, but they're also talking about stuff in their classrooms and they're learning from each other, which we know that is a great way to be better at your craft. Whatever you're doing is to learn from each other. So it was really neat to just get to sit back and listen to those conversations taking place and knowing that they were going to take back some valuable things to their classrooms. So I enjoyed getting invited to go to that. We have had a couple of meetings since then. We have been discussing budget, which I'm glad that we're continuing that conversation. I think we're making some great progress. I like the direction that we're headed so far with that stuff. I attended the Southwest Family Advocacy Center tour. They invited school board members and district personnel to come and check out their facility. If you don't know what that place is, that's good. That means you never needed to use it. That's basically what they said to everybody there. If you never knew who we were, then great. That means you never had to use us. But it is a great place that works with law enforcement and medical to provide services for minors and even some young adults if they're in situations where they need to interview people or go through. They have counseling there. They've got medical services. They can provide all kinds of stuff there, and it's in a more calmer environment than doing it at a police station or at a hospital. And they just have all these wraparound services there that are very neat to see. And it was interesting to watch it and kind of sad, like when you're seeing these things, you're like, oh, these kids come in here, but I'm glad that there's a place like this for kids that need it, that they have this opportunity to come to a place like this. And it's not this scary police station or scary ER room. So that was a good experience to be able to see that at least. I was invited to come and do the snack cart at Corte Sierra last week, where I got to go around and hand out treats to all the staff members at Corte. And the best part about that was going into the cafeteria and talking to our cafeteria workers. They were so excited that they were not forgotten. And so I let them know that I would make sure they are not ever forgotten. That is my school, so it makes it a little easier. But so please, when other PTAs and PTOs are doing stuff, and if you're doing some kind of special treats for your teachers, don't forget about your cafeteria workers. They are very important. If our kids aren't fed, if their bellies are empty, they are not going to be able to learn. So we need to remember that they are just as important to our kids and them being successful in school. And then yesterday, I was able to go and read at Litchfield Elementary School to a couple of classrooms. And one of the classrooms, they always ask questions at the end, and they always ask you how old you are. And I said my age, and then one of the kids was like, I thought you were 26. So I let them know that would be my favorite child forever. I was like, I mean, my oldest son is 20, so that's not possible, but so that was fun. And then I also got to read at Mabel today, where Ms. Clymer over here set them up to like her better. Because the instant I walked in, they said, when's Ms. Clymer coming back? And the teacher let me know that's because she told them to ask that. So
I played the fifth on that. I mean, they just really liked my reading style
Right.
better, I think.
So
It was
but
just a practical joke.
it was
because
a-
they really did like you.
it was totally fine. And it was a fun experience. I got to read Dragons Love Tacos today and Taco Tuesday. It's the best day to read that book. So we got to talk about our favorite kind of tacos. We also read The Legend of Rock, Paper, Scissors. And so I had a student stop me and play rock, paper, scissors with me before I left his class, because he needed to make sure that he got to do that one time. And I also got to go to Western Sky on Friday and see their production of Annie, which was fantastic. Their students did a great job. It just ignited my passion for having these type of experiences for our students, arts, sports, all that stuff. It's very important for our students. So it's been a super busy month. I've also had multiple meetings with Superintendent Gunning, and I appreciate that Dr. Doozy is now joining us for those meetings so that she can be part of those weekly meetings that we have as well. There's probably a lot of other things that have happened. It's been an extremely busy month, but I think that that's enough things. I appreciate everybody and all the work they've been putting in, because we are all busy with doing the superintendent search, and it's requiring us to do a lot of things on our own as well. And so I appreciate the extra time that you guys are giving. With that, I'm done. So I will entertain oh, wait, sorry. One more thing. I'd like to thank the administrators. We get reports from our administrators. Those are all online in board docs. So when you're looking at our agendas, those are great reports. They put pictures in, they share the story of what's happening on the campuses. So if people ever want to know what's happening in the school, that's a really great resource for them to look at and see. So I thank the administrators that put those together for us. I love seeing them and being able to see our students. I especially love the pictures. So it's really just a fun thing. And I appreciate you guys putting those together. Now I am done. And if somebody would like to make a motion.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
I will second.
Okay, having a motion in a second, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Clymer,
Yay.
Mr. Owens,
Yay.
Ms. Moran,
Yay.
Mr. Honak,
Yay.
and I am a